Hey there, Joe Skibby with Beats, Beds, and Browns, your spot for emerging hip hop artists, garden interests from commercial ag to homestead ag, and bourbon and whiskey distillers. Got an exciting bookend to our third season. We interviewed some incredible talent, some dynamic garden interests, and to close out the trilogy season, two Eagles Distillery out of Mount Prospect, Illinois, founded in 2017 as a passion project between three friends. Two Eagles is focused on creating the highest quality spirits and beverages, sourcing local ingredients, listening to the wants and needs of their clients and the community they serve. Our focus will always be Chicagoland and the region. There's so many talented individuals out there we can cut it up with. This, in our third season, we successfully added live stream and are working on an exciting edition, either season 3B or 4A, depending upon how you look at it. But we're going to be doubling up our content calendar in the coming months. Again, we are the resource for emerging hip hop artists, garden interests, and bourbon and whiskey distillers. Let's not forget our mission to distribute 100,000 heirloom seed kits over the next 10 years. Tune in via the hashtag 100K in 10 years on your social media of choice. We want to introduce people to growing their own food and realizing how easy it is to get started. Whether you've got acres or just a balcony, you can start growing your own food. Tap in on our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Beats, Beds, Browns. And make sure you gently subscribe on YouTube to get notified of our content releases. And please participate in the comments section throughout our content. We want to hear from you. Happy planting. And thanks to those of you joining us after the live taping. Tonight, we have the honor of interviewing Operations Manager Jesse Zien, math major with an MBA. Jesse started his career in the merchant services, followed by banking and technology stints. Married with two kids, he stays busy outside of work coaching water polo. Without further ado, I'd like to bring Jesse Zien to the stage.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good, Jesse. I feel like I need to stress that we have hit the go live button. We are live. This is take two for Jesse and I. I really appreciate your accommodation and time for my beginner's rookie mistakes. I forget to hit go live during our first interview. So thank you.
No worries. No worries. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. Good to see you as well. We start all of our interviews the same way. Where are you from? Where are you at? And where are you guys going?
Where am I from? Originally from Chicago. I was born and raised in the city, and said where I'm from, where I'm at now. I'm actually in the distillery right now. I still live in Chicago. I still live on the northwest side of the city, but I'm in the distillery right now. We're in Mount Prospect, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago. If you're familiar with where O'Hare is, we are just north of the airport.
Fantastic. And, I've heard the term contract distiller in our prior discussion. Tell the audience what contract distilling means and if you guys have brands of your own and what you guys are currently working on.
Yeah, so contract distilling is really basically kind of like a co-packing type idea, but in the alcohol industry. So really what you see when you go into like a liquor store, you're going to see all these different brands. Well, odds are that a lot of those brands aren't actually made by the name that's on the front of the bottle. It's not the same distillery. They might be using the distillery that's making it might be using a DBA, or it might just be coming from a larger distillery, and you can see the name on the back of the bottle if you really dig for it in the fine print. And we do a lot of that. We do a lot of working with small and developing brands that are looking to kind of take their idea and bring it to fruition. And that's kind of what we are passionate about, is helping people enter the alcohol industry and learn a lot about it and bring these just fun, different ideas to market.
So you guys are the master chefs, and you're preparing the branded beverages that we all drink and assume are made by those companies, but that's not always the case.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I don't want to do too much, Wizard of Oz, look behind the curtain, but it's just kind of the truth of the situation. Not everybody, same in a lot of the food industry. Not all of it is made by each individual little food company. Sometimes they're using a co-packer. And you also asked if we have our own brands. We do. We create our own brand, Prospect, which we came out with about I keep saying it's a year ago. We're probably coming up on 2 years now. But we have our own line. We have our own line of vodka. We have a 10 times distilled vodka that we make right here. And then we also have a gin that we make right here. We have a line of whiskeys. Some of the whiskeys we've been, in all this contracting, we go out and we have to talk to other distilleries, buy pre-made product. And we found stuff that's good, but not quite there yet. So what we've been doing there is kind of we'll bring in a whiskey that's pretty good and finish aging it here. Some of the fun stuff we've been able to do is partner with like a local winery and bring like a red wine barrel, throw a whiskey that's close to where like you want it to be, but kind of maybe the red wine barrel help finish off some of those flavors, also add some unique characters of its own, and create a nice final product. We have our bourbon is literally the bottles are sitting about 100 feet away from me. The juice is sitting in a tote. We've taken it out of the barrel, and there's just a little bit of magic that still needs to happen where you put the brown in the bottle and then you put a little cap on it, and then you can start selling it to people. So we're real close there.
And I know you guys have an expansive facility there. That includes a rick house, so you guys actually have bottles. No,
we don't have like a separate rick house. Like if you were to hop in a car and drive down in Kentucky, you're going to see a rick house that is much bigger than what we have. We have basically a wall. We have a wall of barrels that are all aging.
An enviable wall of barrels.
It's bigger than somebody's garage, but we're growing constantly. So we're starting to have some of our smaller barrels come of age. We were very fortunate. We found a big stack of wood about I'd say almost 3 years ago now. That was basically wood that had been discarded by a mill. They looked at it and there were too many knots, and we found a cooper that was willing to take the time and make smaller barrels out of it. It was a big stack of wood that they basically I think it was sat in Kentucky for almost 5 years. So by the time we actually made it, some of the wood was 8 years old. We were real lucky that type of natural aging you just can't find. We made a lot of 5-gallon, 15, 30-gallon barrels. So we have a considerable section of that, and then we have a bunch of 53s that we've been making.
Okay. So. I mean, just 15 questions just popped into my head in terms of, the economics around doing that.
Oh, there's a lot there with barrels. Yeah. We can talk about barrels.
If I have a recipe and I have you make it, what's like the smallest feasible, to be economically viable? Is it the 15-gallon? Is it 30? Is it bigger?
Well, if you're talking about whiskey, the best, when you have your cost and you have your space, they cross almost perfectly at 53 gallons. It's just kind of the funny thing is that's where it all lines up.
And is that at a particular price point from a bottle standpoint, or
it's from a wood surface area? Okay. You really get into the chemistry. You look at the surface area of the spirit, and you look at how they interact. And if you get much bigger than a 53-gallon barrel, you don't see much change in the product. The cost of the barrel doesn't get. It gets a little bit bigger, but it's not comparatively much larger. But that's right about where you start to plateau at price per gallon. At the same time, it's if you go smaller, you get more square inches of charred wood touching spirit, but you use exponentially more wood. They don't move in a linear fashion when you get underneath the 53-gallon barrel. So, but when you're talking about if you're looking to enter the market, if you're looking to say, I want to give this a go, usually you end up right around 1,000 bottles. Two reasons on that. One, a thing of glass bottles, and you're going to go buy them. They come around 1,000 bottles. Usually they're not, if you cut that pallet short, you don't get a discount. They still charge you for the full 1,000 bottles. And if you go more, there's not really much of an extra. You don't see a major price cut until you hit about 5.
So we're looking at 1,000 bottles of the Beats, Beds and Browns Reserve when we're at that point.
Yeah. But the good news is it takes 4 barrels of whiskey to fill that. Okay. So it takes more whiskey. But then also when you get into the contract side of stuff, if you're a group that's coming in, we have a lot of people that come to us that have already purchased barrels, and they've either done it through a broker and they've had them set aside for years, and they want us to just basically empty the barrel and put it in a bottle.
So there's a whole market of distilled whiskey that you could buy, and then maybe throw into a second, like you mentioned, a wine nave, and finish with your own recipe. And is that piece magic? Is it science? Like, because you can't really say I'm going to get X% of flavor from this.
Well, some people give me a hard time about it. They'll be like, "Oh, I've heard people say, oh, you're not actually making whiskey, or that's not as true," or things of that nature. And
Do those people grow their own grain? Are they?
well, I asked the other question I ask is I say, well, what did the Angels Envy Special Cider Reserve go for? Why did anyone buy that if it was cheating?
Yeah.
And they did all that in house, but at the same time, I mean, there's so many ways to experiment. Do we sit here and we say, oh, only this one specific type of music is okay? I mean, if they would have stuck with classical, I mean, you probably wouldn't have a podcast, or you'd be short of B at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's we're not purists in any fashion. Yeah. We love the cross. We think the magic is in the crossover, and that's where it happens. So definitely not an advocate of that position. But in terms of coming up with some of these special blends, I know there's the recipe, the grain bill, or the grain.
Yeah.
Then there's the wood and the finishing. And lately, I've started to see some of the big names trying to extend the time that it goes out for a longer duration process. And I was trying to make my Christmas list and then realized one of those bottles is going to go for $10K. So
are you talking about the aging in the barrels and whatnot?
Yeah.
Yeah, you really see some interesting stuff. And you got to remember, I honestly, you don't have to do anything. First of all, the number one rule of whiskey is you do whatever you want. Whatever makes you happy is what you do. But some things to remember when you're looking at like Scotch, right? Oh, wow, it's like an 18-year Scotch. It's got to be good. Well, the real magic of putting alcohol in a barrel happens when that alcohol moves into the wood and out of the wood and in and out. And it filters through. Well, what caused that? Causes that heat change. Okay. Scotland does not change temperature. It pretty much stays, in a fairly mean, median area the entire time. And that's why you're seeing, an 18-year, 12-year, 18-year Scotch. You were to do that with a bourbon, you're getting into some dicey area because you might have all of that flavor get just dramatically changed. You might not be able to pick up that original whiskey anymore. There's some things to be said about, the double barrel process where you take a whiskey that's been aged for a bit and drop it into a new fresh charred barrel. You're going to pick up more notes. You put things into used barrels, you pick up notes from whatever the previous spirit was in there. There's a lot of fun you can have with it.
And you talked about kind of being lucky to have chanced upon the wood and then finding the person to assemble the barrels. Talk to me about the sustainability issue that the barrel industry is facing.
Yeah. We talked quite a bit about that last time, and I wish we could. It was one of those like, man, I really got on a roll there.
The shame, yeah.
Wood. I mean, oak trees take a really long time to grow. I was actually just talking with a landscaper about putting in a tree. And I said, I want to put in an oak. And he goes, you're crazy. And I go, why? And he goes, 1, they die real easy. And 2, it's not going to grow much while you're alive. And I was like, okay, but I like oak trees because it's part of what I do. And he's just like, oh, you think you're going to harvest it? You'd be like, if your grandkids harvest it. And I'm like, no, I don't. I just want the oak trees. So it reminds me anyways. Yeah. But that's the truth about oak trees is they are a little bit more finicky than other trees. They're not like the maples that grow real fast and strong. They do grow very dense, which is what you need. But it takes time for an oak tree to grow, and we are using them way faster than we're growing them. Some of these barrels that I have, you can look at the growth rings, or you talk about where the tree is from. We have a tree that was over 100 years old and back, and we know it fell in Cook County Forest Preserve. And we were fortunate enough that we had connections to not only get the wood, but then have a local cooper that could actually make it. Local coopers are actually very hard to find. It's not a profession that you just kind of open up the phone.
Is that like a dying art type of thing?
I don't know if I'd call it. There aren't a lot of them. It's a very specific type of woodworking. That you have to get all that barrel to go together just right. Like if you ever took apart a barrel, you'll see that it's not like, oh, hey, I took a bunch of 2x4s and just put like a bunch of rings around them. You have to cut them very, very precisely, and putting the heads in is also very, very difficult. So anyway, putting the finding, being able to get these trees and turn them into barrels is something that we've figured out on a large scale. But what happens afterwards? And there's a lot of discussion about, well, to do bourbon, it has to be a fresh charred barrel. To do a lot of your, like even rye whiskey, fresh charred barrel. And they say you can only use that barrel once. And there's a lot of getting into, well, what if we were to take that barrel and instead of, and cut it when we first make it so it's thick enough, that we could come back and cut that inside out and get back to virgin wood that hasn't been charred. And there's not a lot of people who want to do that. First of all, the money is in making new barrels. That's where you see your best markups and things of that nature. But you're running a risk when you cut that inside. The barrel might not hold. So you have to figure out a lot of ways of how can we repair the barrel if we don't get far enough. Maybe we take two barrels that have both been used a couple times, and we know that we're going to be able to take them apart and reassemble one new good barrel after we cut the inside of the barrel down and then retoast it and rechar it. So we do a lot of exploring that here. We spend a lot of time thinking about that. Our goal is to be a neutral distillery. People will talk about being like, oh, we're carbon neutral. And then there's people who tell you that they're energy neutral. Or there's also people have told me that they're water neutral and things like that. We're trying to look at all of it because we use all of that a lot in making alcohol. So we really want to get to a point where we can say that we're not as a drain necessarily on the resources around us.
Yeah, and that sounds like that could be a additional commercial opportunity if you figure something like that out to be able to corner the market on recycled barrels.
I think there is something there from a commercial opportunity. Two Eagles, Matt, the distiller, and I are both Eagle Scouts. That's where the name comes from, and it's more than just a commercial opportunity. It's the way to do things right. I don't like the idea of, by the time my grandkids are running around, there might not be oak trees because we all were really thirsty. That seems pretty stupid, to be honest. So I think we have to really take a focus in the industry of what we can do to conserve wood. There's also a lot of really interesting technologies about different ways you can. You put the whiskey in a barrel, but then what's in the rick house with it? What can we do with the pressures? What can we do with the humidities so that the barrel doesn't get as damaged from the aging process, the exterior of the barrel, that is. That's
part of the draw of the Louisville region is because of their huge temperature swings, and that's the absorption and release, like you mentioned, that doesn't happen in the Scotch barrels.
Correct. That's some of the good things there, but you also get into like there's some bad things down there too. I mean, there's so much alcohol vapor coming out, you get black mold growing. That I don't know if you've seen some of those videos of them literally blasting it off of houses and street signs and stuff. But I think that as we mature as an industry, we can look at different ways to mitigate the side effects. We see it all over the place. I mean, there's a lot of push now, especially in a lot of the fossil fuel industries, of where energy comes from and how we can differently look at energy. I think we can do the same thing in the alcohol industry on some of our usage.
So while we were talking about Louisville and the different tourist regions in Kentucky, you guys kind of miss out on that, but you guys do or are working on a retail establishment.
Yeah, we are. Actually, I think last time we talked, we were really, really early in the process of that. But we've been out scouting. We're looking to build Two Eagles 3.0. Two Eagles 1.0 was a 2,000 square foot distillery, very small. Kind of a proof of concept, if you will, of can two guys start a distillery and be profitable, and did that for we did that for a bit of time. I'm trying to think how long we were in there, almost 3 years. Majority of it was during COVID, which was very, very different. We had immediately switched over to making hand sanitizer and giving it away. We did that for almost 2 years, but then got back to doing what we wanted, and we did pretty well. We were able to expand to 2.0, which is what we're in right now. We're about 6,600 square foot facility. Our plans for the new place, so we've put together a little bit more. We're looking at building 120,000 square foot distillery of production space. There'll most likely be a multi-level building, and also working to bring the milling on site, bring large amounts of grain storage on site. We'll be looking to also increase our still capacity. Right now we do about a barrel a day off our still. We're looking to take that to about 6 to 8 barrels a day. Wow. We're going to keep all of our sourcing local. We do all of our sourcing local through organic, no-till crop rotational farmers. that are found in majority of them are in the state of Illinois. Most of them are within about 100 miles of us. We do barley. We have to go a little bit farther just because barley is kind of a difficult crop from a fungus type standpoint. You get into different areas of the country have different problems growing it organically. So, but we're moving the right direction. We've identified a property. I'm not going to give too much about it because I know earlier in the day the realtor called back and said, "Well, they didn't like your offer." So we're working to expand on that. But we're also one of the other fun things built into our plans is we're going to be building like a retention pond. So some of the areas we're actually specifically targeting some areas that have they're in floodplains. And require areas to store water. The reason we're doing this is we are looking at building a closed circulation system that will allow us to cool our still by pumping the water through the still to heat it up and then back out through the pond to cool it down. And ultimately, we believe we're going to be able to create a net zero cooling system.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, kind of fun little adventure there that we'll see if the mechanical engineer's math is correct or not.
I'm picturing, like a native landscaped pond reservoir with all types of original habitat to whatever region you end up in.
That's really what we're looking at too. We've also it's been interesting, some discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers and figuring out, okay, what can you actually do when there's a natural wetland there? Because there is, I'll be honest, that pond will never freeze. Pond is never going to freeze, and that's gonna, you have to look at your impact on the area around you. It might be like, oh, hey, great, we're not using as much water, but we have salmon that are about or we have bass or largemouth bass that are 6.5 feet long outside.
Yeah. Now it's a fishing mecca. Back to the tourism.
Yeah. All of a sudden, it's a fishing destination, not a liquor destination. But that would actually probably be a great destination. You go catch a large fish and grab a drink afterwards.
It's not to speak on another distillery, but we're here in Valpo, right down the road. We just the American factory, restored Anko building with journeyman, event space, concert destination, late night pizza. Is that a survival tactic to be able to mitigate some of the risk of the distilling economy and inject other sources of revenue, or is that just ADD? We're going to go full bore until we ride this thing to the sunset.
I don't want to talk too much about our plans, but yes, we have very, very similar layouts on some of the properties we're looking at right now. Okay. I think there's an experience. Distilling is kind of a lost art. Back when Prohibition went in, distilling was just more common. Everyone did it. Everyone knew about it. Distilling is an essential part of our lives, not only in alcohol, but look around the room. I can guarantee there's something plastic near you that wouldn't be here without distillation. Separation of we take a chemical solution, we separate it out. A lot of things that we do every day are dependent on just the separation of chemicals. And I think this is one of those things that people can come and they can connect with. And when you're doing that, you want to go that next, go a little bit farther and give people a true experience when they come out. People don't want to get a car and just do a tour and then hop in their car and drive back. Hang out, see a little bit. The other kind of fun thing I think about distilling is it's all artisans. We get really into kind of looking for some fun stuff. It's not going to be the prepackaged things that you're just kind of used to. I'm not trying to knock anything, but when people think, an old fashioned, or which actually the old fashioned's back. I think that drink left for a very long period of time, but that's definitely back. But some of these drinks before, like a whiskey Coke. Okay, you're not going to go to a distillery and probably have a whiskey Coke. You probably could if you wanted. They probably will they will definitely make it for you. But you're gonna get something maybe a little bit different. Maybe someone might take that whiskey Coke and do take it a step further and look at like, hey, let's talk about maybe bringing some sugars from rums, like some spent, bring some molasses and really make a thick, dark, heavy soda, and then blend it with a specific type of whiskey to accent flavors and put it together. You see distillers doing that a lot. That's kind of what we do. We do a lot of it around here. A lot of the cocktails that we do for RTDs, which are ready to drink cocktails, we're trying to take it that step further. And I think that when you talk about these distilleries that have a full destination, have a bar, a tasting room, and all of this, it's because we have more than just, hey, I made this cool spirit. We want to accent it. The buckwheat bourbon that we have coming out has just these wonderful like brand flavors that, yeah, you can drink it straight and you go, oh, wow, that's cool. Or you could probably drink it with a little soda water and go like, that's cool. Have it on rocks. Cool. But who's going to, who has enough of it sitting in their house? You get 375 milliliters. You're like, well, I only want to do good things with this. You're not going to make crazy cocktails, but I am, because I have about 120 gallons of it. So I'm going to make some fun cocktails, and then I'm going to want to share them with you. And I'm going to want to tell you about like how, we found that, orange bitters actually really make a cool Manhattan in this. Not something you'd be thinking, but it does. And also, what's the other thing we're playing with on it? Playing with just different types of sugars, and looking at kind of actually, you take that sugar cube, and if you can actually get one that's got a little bit of mineral content to it, and bring out just wonderful more flavors that are going to interact with that whiskey. Might not be something you're going to do at home when you only have about 3 glasses worth. Okay.
So I know there's a 3-headed monster running the show here. Are you the artisan? Sounds like you're the math guy a little bit. I know there's a mad scientist running the stills. You guys all overlap and interplay.
It's all crazy. Matt is our master distiller. He's very talented in science to begin with. He's a biochem by trade. But he also he has a natural knack for distilling. He can do stuff that I can't. I mean, he can literally walk up to the still, and just take the finger through what's coming out and go, we got about 30, 45 minutes. We're going to need to shut her down, or we're making a cut. And I'm just like, okay, sure. And you can math that. You can sit there and you can put, the proof is changed from, 144 to 140. And we're starting to see the mathematical change. You can do all that. But again, like I said, there's a lot of this that's artisan. That comes in, and that Matt does a lot of that. Matt is also fantastic at just combining flavors and understanding, especially when you're making a cocktail, and what you want to add and how to accent different things. He's fantastic with that. He's also really good with paperwork. So we are amazingly blessed at that, because there's a lot of paperwork. Aaron is
the distillation is federally regulated, right?
So
yeah.
There's a lot of paperwork there. But also you run into a lot of regulatory stuff of, especially when you're making cocktails, you're making like a ready to drink cocktail. You get a lot of regulatory of, hey, we're going to send you these safety data sheets on these different ingredients, and they all have, people don't realize there's a lot of maximums. You're not supposed to put, alcohol is a poison. We all know that. Right. So you only want to put a certain amount of that in there, but then you combine it with another thing. How's this going to work out? I don't know if you remember, like Fireball, there was a big thing when it was originally coming out where Europe wouldn't take it because there were chemicals in it that they're not okay with. And you have to understand how all those chemicals interact. So Matt does great at that. Our partner, Aaron, is kind of our high flying overseer of, Matt and I are down in the weeds every day working, doing stuff. He's the one that it reminds us of, one, you got to make money, and two, you got to make money so you can keep the lights on. And then two, also is what we're doing the best thing at all times. We get really excited about project. We'll be going down that path, and it's, hey, remember there's what you want to do. There's what makes money, and you need to find somewhere in between here. That's where your company finds success. And then, yes, I do a lot of math. I do all the finance, and I get to do a lot of the logistics, the parts that just making sure that the ingredients are there when they need to be grabbed, and things of that nature. So I also end up getting to also, hey, someone needs to be on the bottling line. Okay, I'm heading over. Or, hey, we got a spill and I'm busy over here, and it's okay, on my way. But we all work together very well. We all work
fortunate to get a tour of one of the beverage distributors here that was for beer. And part of the tour was historic wall of cans and the number of local taps, right, that used to brew their own beer. And you mentioned, getting back to the craft distilling process and more people taking that than some of the big players that, garnish all the headlines. Do you see parallels between kind of the craft beer industry and the segmentation and the different flavor profiles with what's going on currently in the distillery world? Or
Yeah, I think there are definitely some parallels. The one thing I think that's a lot harder in distilling is we're a lot more regulated. We don't have the abilities that like the breweries did to just go deliver their own stuff. It was I think, a lot easier for them. We are getting there in the distilling industry, but it's slightly different. I think the other big obstacle difference. I'll talk differences first, and then we'll go to kind of similarities. The other big difference is you can't distill in your house. They'll let you brew. I mean, you can. I mean, I know a couple of people that have started breweries that I knew when they were still doing them in their house, and they were kind of figuring out the little nuances. We didn't get that luxury. We were doing it. When we started, we did have a small. The first thing we did was buy a small still. When we were getting our permits, and you actually can't get all your permits till you have your stuff delivered. When we did it, now it's a little different, but we had a small still and a big still, and we'd play on the small still a little bit, but then you take it to the big still, and it's just completely night and day different. And distillation,
doubling a batch.
Yeah, well, that in distillation is. You're looking to get the sweet spot of the run. It's not like you can't use the beginning and you can't use the end, and you can only pull the center, the heart that people talk about. And the only way to be economically viable is to have the largest possible heart, and that requires large equipment, which requires a lot of money. So, anyways, those are a bunch of differences between us and brewing. But you're saying, the similarities. I think there are. I think there's a lot of similarities. I think that craft distilling is allowing us to accent some things that just haven't been looked at. Like grain grows differently across this country. You can look at like Wapsie Valley corn that grows in Delaware and compare it to stuff grown in Iowa, and you can see completely different flavors coming out of them. Similar things for your basic yellow dent, which is there are some fantastic organic varieties of that they grow different in Illinois than they grow different in Nebraska, then they grow different down in Missouri. Just little nuances. And I think local distilling allows us to look local and bring these local grains in. One of the other things we're really, really passionate about is looking beyond corn and looking at the other grains. Brewing focused a lot on malt, but we can look at a lot of different things. We look at rye. We're able to work with local farmers that we've been finding a lot of them through the Artisan Grain Collaborative, which is we're a member of. It focuses really on the bringing back small grain, making it so it's not just corn and soy in every single field when you're driving along the interstate. Looking at what are the other crops that are good not only for local industries to use and making those connections, but also good for nature. Looking at promoting the natural pollinators and birds and bugs and all of that. We need those. Anyway, the nice thing is with craft distilling, we're able to get into looking at the different varieties of rye, looking at the different varieties of malt. And that's, I think, something we saw in the beer industry was when craft brewing came along. I remember I had all your basic large, your Miller Lights, your Budweisers, your Coors, your old style, from Chicago, obviously, but, and you knew the little variations there. Well, then all of a sudden you had these brewers out there that are these craft brewers that are going and they're finding the obscure stuff and just making it very mainstream. I think the IPA was like the thing that just really changed how people looked at beer. All of a sudden,
Citra and Cascade hops.
Yep. I mean, I was fortunate in college. I was in Omaha. We were right down the street. We were just down I-29 from Boulevard Brewery. And also Omaha actually had a really nice craft brew scene back in the early 2000s that most people didn't even know existed. But I remember having a Scottish ale. And it was just like, what's this? This is cool. And I think craft distilling is starting to get there and do that for a lot of people. We're starting to see a lot of different things in distilling. I think one of them that I've seen more and more is the maple barrel finished bourbon. I don't know if you've ever had that, but I've started to see it a lot more. And it's a very interesting thing where you take a maple syrup and you put it in a bourbon barrel. Yep. And you get maple syrup that picks up the flavor. And then once you get the maple syrup out, put more bourbon back in, and then the bourbon gets the maple syrup flavor. And it's just, it's one of those things where I remember I remember she's probably was at least 10, 15 years ago, someone making me a Manhattan and using a little bit of fresh maple syrup from Wisconsin. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
We
And
have
now
a
you're seeing
cask
that.
strength maple
Yep.
finish from Nulu Distillery in Louisville. Last time we went down, all the major houses were booked. We took an off tour in the new Nulu district, and I would always say, before tasting that, that's something I wouldn't be interested in. It's too sweet. It's not going to be for
Yep.
me. But that is quickly rising the charts as one of the favorites.
And I think there are those parallels in how craft brewing really brought these flavors that a lot of us just were kind of like, I'm never going to try that. Like that, I can't see through that beer. It looks like chocolate milk. Why am I going to drink that? And I think you'll see the same thing in distilling as it becomes more and more. There's just been so many. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I visit a lot of distilleries. I meet a lot of other distillers just in the industry. People love to share and trade alcohol. Here, try this, try that. We ended up trying there's the alcohol made down in Texas. I think it's Jalisco. That I have had some people send to me. That's just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's so good. It's just different. It's fun. We're going to see, I think, a huge change in tequila and agave in the next couple of years, all because of craft distilling, especially craft distilling in the United States, because we're going to see locally made agave spirits that are just going to become more and more popular as people start understanding all of these flavors and all of this excitement that can come out of these things that we've just been, you've gone into the supermarket forever and it's been Jack, Jim, and Jose. So,
we've got, again, the property we moved on to had apple and pear trees, never fermented anything before. And now we're fermenting apple and pear cider. And it's just bringing that to family gatherings, the holidays, housewarming. And each bottle is something different, right? So not to draw a parallel with the science behind what you guys do, but it's that type of fun and joy of creation. And
and brandy. Wait until if you find somebody, that has a still that'll do a quick run for it. I mean, you'll be surprised just in the different types of apples, the different types of pears, the different ways you can make brandy, and the different notes that are going to come through are amazing. We've actually learned a lot from just some Eastern Europeans. Matt and I met through water polo, and very popular sport in Europe, especially Eastern Europe. We know a lot of guys who've come over that played water polo with, and just some of the stuff they've taught us about things they've done in their families of, where they'll take and, grandma used to take these cherries and put them in a bag and they would sit there for 3 months. And then when the fall came around, they would take it out and she'd have added a little bit of, I don't want to say gasoline, but it was pretty much straight alcohol. And then they mix in different sugars and they, and the use of ultraviolet light to help break down the different aspects of the spirit and then create these unique flavors. We've been fortunate. We played a lot with that. We're really excited. We have a cherry infused liqueur. It's pretty much a cherry infused vodka, but we use actual whole maraschino cherries from Michigan that we've been working about 2.5 years on perfecting that. Things like that. It blows your mind because it's not sweet. It's very weird. It's not sweet, but it's like a syrup that is tart that you drink it and you go, wow, this is great. And then you go, Jesse, how is this 90 proof? I should probably stop drinking this. Yeah. So
talk to me, like, that just seems mind blowing. You said 2 years to develop. Like, is that just sitting in the still and taking a little bit off and adding to the recipe, or what does that look like?
That's a fermentation. That's a trying to naturally infuse. And experimenting with different methods of infusion, and looking at just how does the fruit interact with the spirit, not only at high proof, but lower proofs, everywhere in between. You want to pit the fruit always because the pits can contain poisons. Yeah. But just figuring out how it works together. And the other thing that also is a problem is you get done and you start with a cherry that's about this big. Let me see if I can get it. And then you get done and it's about twice the size. How did it grow? Well, it's full of alcohol, and now you got to get that alcohol out, but you don't want to get too much of that fruit pulp because it's going to jam up all your equipment. And how do you figure this out and make it taste delicious? When grandma, when the grandma, my buddy, was making it, she had just literally cheesecloth, and she just squeezed it and took care of it. And they made about 3 bottles for Christmas every year. Great. Well, we want to take that idea and make it big. Yeah. And make it so it's mass produced. We actually had a young gentleman come to us recently who's from Poland, and he has an age-old family recipe. There's a specific name for it, which I do not remember, but they take lemon zest and honey and have it sit in a high-proof spirit for a period of time, and then blend it and make a final product. And it's been in their family for generations, and they're working to try. He said, it's very common in the Polish community. Obviously, a lot of Polish people in Chicago, but looking at, okay, this is great, and we've tried it. It's fantastic. And I'm like this. Everyone should drink this. The problem is, how do we make 20,000 bottles of this at once, and in a way that makes sense? Finances play into it. That's where our partner Aaron comes in and goes, "Hey guys, it's great that you came up with this, but it's literally going to take you like 4,000 man hours to do that." So,
and 5 years to be able to sell it, right? I mean, how long it has to be aged, and
well, the part I was talking about where it took us about 2.5 years. There's been a lot of trial and error, and we want to get, we want to find, obviously whiskey takes 4 years, and everything in every type of infusion takes different periods of time. And when we work with some of these liqueurs, we really want to try to keep it under 6 months. Something that, I'm not like sitting here now thinking like, in 2025, we're going to Christmas, we're going to need to really get this production going.
Phase 5.0.
Yeah. I don't know. If we're moving iterations that fast, I'm going to get real tired a lot faster.
Nice. Well, Jesse, we're at 42 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time.
Oh, we can get going. I'm good. If you've got more time, if you got more questions, let's do a few more. You okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I know we haven't even covered the ready-to-drink beverages. I know we talked a lot about last time. Can you go into a little bit about how that makes sense in your, between the contract distilling and as well as your own pet projects?
Yeah. So ready-to-drink cocktails, I think that's really a lot. I talked earlier about, you asked why are these distilleries building like entertainment centers and all this. I think a lot of the craft part of craft distilling, that artisan aspect, RTDs, I think can really help distilleries show what we're talking about. I think especially this year, you're going to see a lot more old fashions on the shelf. We've had an old fashioned for over 4 years or 3 years, 4 years. 4 years. I think we came out with it in 2020, which was a fantastic mistake where I over-diluted whiskey that we were doing for a contract. And we had about 400 gallons of over-diluted whiskey. And Matt goes and he takes a ladle and I'm like, "What are you doing? Are you going to fix it?" And he goes, "No, I'm going to make an old-fashioned." I go, "Well, how many old-fashions could we make?" And he goes, "Well, we could make a lot of old-fashions." Really screwed up. So we made a bunch of old-fashions and we were able to make a very unique one that people enjoy, and we make it every holiday. And we're actually looking to expand it to more than the holidays soon. But the RTD, back to that, knowing, that I'm around alcohol all the time, we find drinks that we like, and we're able to kind of to share that with people. And doing an RTD is a way that, hey, you can go and you can just pick this cocktail up and you can enjoy it. I think there's a lot of obstacles to doing it right. There's a lot of science in it. There's a lot of chemistry, because it's not like you're going to take and squeeze a fresh lime into a glass and then seal it up and go, "All right, I'm going to put this on the shelf here for 6 months," and then someone's going to come along. That's not going to be a good experience for them. So you have to figure out the right way to do it. One of the ones that we've been, we did a vodka cranberry. It was our 2 most successful right now. We have a vodka cranberry, which we put bubbles in it. I know that that sounds crazy, but we worked really hard to make a properly balanced vodka cranberry, so it wasn't too cranberry, it wasn't too light. But then we added an effervescence to it, because we wanted to. A big part of drinking is you're breathing in, you're smelling. And we found that when I make a vodka cranberry, I do vodka, cranberry, and then I'll add a little bit of soda water. just because it cuts it a little and it adds a little bit of that. I get more of an effervescent into my nasal passages of the cranberry. And we did one of our RTDs that we do right now with Under the Prospect is literally vodka cranberry. We do call it vodka canberry because we are very bad at typos. But
is that a mistake?
we have a lot of mistakes in our labels, actually. I'll tell you the old-fashioned mistake was we had to put on the label with contains natural and artificial flavors and bitters. Well, we accidentally misspelled and put Boyders, and the government approved it. And we caught it, and we went back and we said, hey, we need to change this. And because it's one of the sections that they have to review. And they said, well, we're not going to approve it now. And we go, what do you mean you're not going to approve it? They go, you can use what you have, but you cannot change it to bitters. And it was like, and we're like, okay. So we're just going to lean into the mistakes now. Yeah. So we intentionally will submit labels a lot with mistakes like the vodka canberry because it's in a can and it is cran. And we had to put a line on there underneath that says vodka and cranberry, but the name on the side of the cocktail says vodka canberry, very big. So anyways, that's been very popular. The other one that's been really successful is a whiskey ginger, which if you've never had a whiskey ginger and you're listening to this podcast, you need to have a whiskey ginger. It's probably the simplest drink. It's just whiskey and ginger ale, and they just interact so well. You can do it with almost any whiskey, in any of your main ginger ales, and it's fantastic. Ginger and whiskey interact so well. I knew a lot. I have had whiskey gingers for quite a while. One of my favorite things to do is take a cross section of ginger and mash it in the bottom of a glass and then add a little bit of whiskey and let it sit and just see what happens. Ginger just works so interestingly with whiskey in bringing out different flavors. And that's been really, really popular RTD for us. And it's a way for us to say, hey, try this. Those are simple ones. We're working on a gin Ricky, which we have. I have people that we did a fair this summer, a block party this summer, and we were doing we were doing gin Rickies, and I had people who had never drank gin before coming up and asking to have a gin Ricky and going like, oh my gosh, I thought I only drink this with tonic or in a martini. Yeah. And I'm like, and we were like, no, this is really fun. We're teaching people how to make gin Rickies. It's a fun summer drink that is just real refreshing. And it's different than a vodka, lime, and soda, Yeah. So.
Now, speaking of fun cocktails, and I know we covered craft beer earlier, you guys have a collab with a local brewing company?
Yeah, we've done some stuff with local brewing. Mad Hatchet, we did some. We got them some barrels. They were really worked real well. It's just they came and picked up the barrels right away, and we were able to
barrel aged beer type stuff.
Oh yeah, they did barrel aged beer in there. We haven't been able to put together a distillation of beer. We've had a couple of conversations with people about it. You're trying to line up production schedules, and that's really where we've just kind of ran into problems. We are, especially right now, we're massively busy gearing up for holidays, and we were pretty busy all summer. We came out with a new line of products called Party Pouch, working with the brand Party Pouch, which is it's very simple. It's a pouch. It's a 1 liter pouch of pre-made cocktail. Nice. Great to take on a boat, and we did that all summer. I can't remember. I think I've done 60,000 of those myself, of putting a pouch in a machine and filling it up and then putting it in a box. Yeah,
man,
it's fun. Honestly, it's fun. We love it. We enjoy the work. We love that a lot of these concoctions we put together, people come back and give us positive feedback.
You forget about all the small business owner hats and doing it all. And,
oh yeah. I think that when you say you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, it means you have many hats. Definitely. I tend to only wear this particular hat, and looks like it's beat up because I never take it off. But yeah,
well worn. Those are the best ones.
So,
and again, one of the other drawbacks in terms of exploration with being a federally regulated is that you guys can't really dabble in the cannabis like the beers are doing and the CBD.
A lot of discussions in there. So we have a hemp infused vodka, Fiore vodka. It's hemp infused that we work with that brand. we're actually infusing hemp protein into the product. Now that is obviously not cannabis. Hemp and cannabis are very, very different things. But we've been able to kind of find that there's some natural parts of hemp that just the hemp protein coming into the product we found creates a little bit of a unique flavor, makes it almost a smoother product. Also, working hemp seed is in part of the kind of the refinement of the alcohol in distillation. It creates some unique side effects that, I mean, there's nothing bad. There's nothing like you're not, obviously there's no THC or CBD or anything like that going in, but you like I said, you create unique things. It's kind of the fun thing of craft. The other thing we have looked at the CBD and THC. You can't distill them because they get destroyed in the temperature process. You also, I believe, when they sit in alcohol for extended period of times, they are not going to stay homogeneous. So we've had a lot of conversations about it. I know there is a definite cocktail craze of people going to bars and being able to add a little bit of CBD to a cocktail that's made. And I know some states allow that. We've looked into it. We've also looked at different kind of delivery mechanisms, like when you crack a Guinness, for example, you have that little widget in there that releases the nitrogen. So there have been discussions in that. Nothing final yet. I think it's also going to be interesting. We're going to have to see where the markets take us, see how people adapt and how the consumers want to enjoy their cannabis products.
And, continued expanded distribution. I think last time we talked, Caputo's was the latest mountain to climb.
Yeah, we're in. It's there. Go to Mount everyone that's listening, go to Mount Prospect Caputo's. You can get a whiskey ginger, a vodka cranberry. You can get our Prospect Reserve, which is a 7-year Kentucky that we finished off in red wine barrels. We got our vodkas in there as well. But yeah, we got that. It was fun. We got there. We've expanded a little bit. We're in most of the Mount Prospect restaurants. We've also started. We found our canned cocktails have been very, very popular with VFW groups, VFW clubs, moose lodges, things like that.
And that's all individual salespeople going out building those relationships. And
it's me and Matt. We also do that. Yeah, we go out and we'll meet people and shake hands and do some sales there. So yeah, no, we are in the process. We've got a candidate coming in that's going to be doing sales. To try to work to expand, but we're trying not to we're trying not to grow too fast too quick. It's a difficult balance. You don't want to overextend yourself and then not have your sales catch up or have problems with production. One of the big problems, the distillery industry, you look at it, it's very hard to make it for 3 years. It's harder to make it 5. It's even harder to make it 10. And if you make it 20, you're probably a name that everyone on the planet knows. So at least that's what I'm telling myself as we're 5 years in. I should have 15 more years, right? But you don't want to, basic running a business. You don't want to expand too fast and have you lose your cash flow. You don't want to get all the cash flow, but not be able to take care of your product. We have to balance all of that and find the right approach.
Absolutely. Well, Jesse, I appreciate your time. Fantastic take 2 on this interview. We couldn't be more thankful that you allowed us the second opportunity. And hopefully this is 2 of 3 as you guys expand into phase 3 for the business. We get another opportunity to hear how things are going.
I hope once we actually get some stuff concrete and figured out, and I'd love to come back and chat with you and tell you what we're up to. So I enjoyed it.
Fantastic. I'm going to pull you out of the studio, close the show, and then bend your ear for a couple minutes if you don't mind.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Jesse, and to Eagles Distillery. Again, Joe Skibby with Beets, Beds, and Browns. Let's not forget our mission to distribute 100,000 heirloom seed kits over the next 10 years. We want to introduce people how easy it is to grow their own food, and whether they have acres or just a balcony, they can get started growing their own. To get your free seed kit, visit beetsbedsbrowns.com or find us on social at beetsbedsbrowns. Again, tap into our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at beetsbedsbrowns. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube to get notified of our content releases. please participate in the comments section throughout our content. We do want to hear from you. Thanks again to Jesse, and to the rest of you, happy planting.